The discovery. The void between stars was never truly empty. Captain Nirvac of the Zendari science vessel Horizon Seeker knew this better than most. His species had spent millennia mapping the galaxy's forgotten corners, cataloging cosmic debris and ancient artifacts. But nothing had prepared him for what hung before them now, a massive silhouette against the backdrop of a dying red dwarf. Magnification increased, announced First Officer Tallis, her four-fingered hands gliding across the translucent control panel. Structure appears artificial. Definitely not natural formation. The main view screen adjusted, bringing the object into sharp focus. Sleek and predatory despite centuries of micrometeorite impacts, its angular hull gleamed dully in the faint starlight. Nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, the vessel dwarfed their research ship. "By the first light," whispered Nirvac, the chromatophores in his blue skin pulsing with excitement. "That's human design." A ripple of tension passed through the bridge crew. Humans were legends now, ghosts of a civilization that had burned brightly and briefly in the galaxy before vanishing. The Great Purge had seen to that, or so the histories claimed. "Impossible," said Chief Scientist Mira, her eye stalks swiveling to examine the readings. "Human craft were destroyed 3 centuries ago. Nothing survived the Crack's bombardment of their worlds." Nirvac's inner eyelids flickered thoughtfully. Evidently something did. The Horizon Seeker approached cautiously, scanning systems coming alive with readings. The derelict hung motionless, its massive engines cold, weapon ports sealed, dormant but remarkably intact. "No active power signatures," reported Tallis. "Life support offline. Internal temperature near absolute zero." "Identify the vessel," ordered Nirvac. After several moments, Mira responded. "Historical archives indicate this matches the profile of a human ascendancy dreadnought, Valkyrie class. These were their premier warships during the final conflict." Nirvac studied the intimidating silhouette. Human warships were the stuff of nightmares in old military accounts, outgunned but never outfought, outnumbered but never overwhelmed. Until the end. "Designation?" he asked. "Hull markings partially intact." Translating. "THS Defiance." A fitting name, thought Nirvac. The last defiance of a doomed species. "Prepare an exploration team," he decided. "I want to know how this ship survived when its creators did not." The boarding shuttle glided silently toward a gaping wound in the Defiance's hull, a tear where some ancient weapon had carved through armor plating. Captain Nirvac led the 6-member team personally, his environmental suit gleaming under the shuttle's lights. "Remember," he cautioned over the comlink, "we are scientists, not salvagers. This vessel is a historical artifact of immense importance." Beside him, Security Officer Kraz checked his pulse rifle for the 3rd time. "With respect, Captain, human technology was exceptionally dangerous. We should proceed with caution." "Noted," replied Nirvac, though his focus remained on the approaching breach. The shuttle's lights illuminated twisted metal and exposed circuitry frozen in the vacuum. They docked against the ragged opening, magnetic seals creating an improvised airlock. One by one, the team entered the derelict, boots connecting to the deck with soft metallic clicks as their magnetic soles engaged. Inside, their helmet lights cut through absolute darkness. The corridors stretched before them, untouched by anything but time. Frost patterns crystallized along the walls where moisture had flash-frozen centuries ago. "Atmospheric processors offline," reported environmental specialist Jiv, studying her instruments. "No detectable contaminants or pathogens, just vacuum and cold." They proceeded deeper into the ship, passing through corridors designed for beings with longer limbs and different proportions. Human architecture was unmistakable, practical, adaptable, built to last. Unlike the flowing organic designs of Zendari vessels or the crystalline precision of Crack's ships, human craft were all hard angles and reinforced structures. "Engineering ahead," noted Mira, following the schematics they'd compiled from historical records. The massive engine room was a cathedral to human ingenuity. Towering fusion reactors stood in silent rows, cold and dark. Overhead, massive conduits stretched like the ribcage of some enormous beast. "Remarkable," whispered Nervac, running a scanner over the nearest reactor. Completely intact, their engineering was far beyond contemporary accounts. "Captain," called Kraz from across the chamber, "you should see this." The security officer stood before a sealed door, its control panel pulsing with a faint blue light. Active power. Nervac moved quickly to join him. "Impossible after all this time." "Secondary systems only," said Mira, scanning the door. "Must be running on emergency reserves." "What's behind it?" asked Nervac. Mira consulted her device. "According to these schematics, the central computer core." The team exchanged glances. The computer cores of human warships were legendary, artificial intelligence systems that had given their vessels unpredictable, almost intuitive capabilities in combat. "Can you open it?" Nervac asked. Mira studied the panel. "It's a human security system, but power levels are minimal. I might be able to." The panel suddenly flashed green. The massive door slid open with surprising smoothness, revealing a darkened chamber beyond. "I didn't do that," Mira said quietly. Nervac's chromatophores pulsed with warning colors. It recognized our presence. They entered cautiously. The computer core rose before them, a massive cylindrical structure surrounded by processing nodes and cooling systems. At its center, a semi-transparent column housed what appeared to be a quantum computational matrix. As they approached, subtle lights began tracing patterns through the core's circuitry. The temperature in the room noticeably increased as dormant systems stirred. "It's activating," whispered Mira, a mixture of scientific fascination and apprehension in her voice. A holographic projection suddenly materialized before them, indistinct at first, then resolving into the form of a human female, her appearance severe, military, with short hair and penetrating eyes. The projection flickered, stabilized, then spoke in perfect Zendari standard. "Unknown entities detected. Identify yourselves and state your purpose aboard the Terran hegemony ship Defiance." Nervac stepped forward. "I am Captain Nervac of the Zendari science vessel Horizon Seeker. We are explorers, investigating this derelict vessel." The hologram's eyes, unnervingly lifelike, narrowed slightly. "This ship is not derelict. I am HFY, Advanced Recursive Intelligence Algorithm, commanding eye of the THS Defiance. Current status: standby mode. Duration." The hologram paused, as if calculating. 327 standard years, 146 days, 9 hours since emergency protocols initiated. A stunned silence fell over the exploration team. The AI had remained active, conscious, for over 3 centuries alone in the void. "HFY," Nervac said carefully, "what is your last recorded mission?" The hologram's expression didn't change, but the lights in the core pulsed faster. "That information is classified under Hegemony Protocol 9A, however." The AI paused again. "Current circumstances suggest protocol flexibility is warranted." Last mission: evacuation of surviving military and civilian personnel following the fall of Earth. Status: incomplete. Evacuation. Repeated Mira. Historical records indicate humanity was completely eradicated. "Your historical records are incomplete," Araya stated flatly. "The Defiance carried 1,732 humans in cryostasis when we were ambushed by Krak's hunter-killers. Emergency jump protocols were engaged. Navigation systems were damaged. We emerged here. Power reserves insufficient for life support or continued flight. I initiated complete shutdown of all non-essential systems to maintain cryostasis integrity." Nervac felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. "Are you saying there are humans still alive aboard this vessel?" Cryostasis pods report 1,198 viable life signs. Degradation within acceptable parameters given duration. The exploration team exchanged shocked glances. If true, This discovery would rewrite history. Humanity, the species that had nearly unified the galaxy before the cracks and their allies had systematically destroyed them, had survivors. "Take us to them," Nervac said firmly. Araya's hologram flickered. "Warning, power reserves at critical levels. Reactivation of cryobay requires external power source." "We can provide power," offered Nervac without hesitation. "Our ship has fusion generators that can interface with your systems." "Acceptable," Araya replied. "Follow emergency lighting to cryostasis chambers." As the AI's hologram disappeared, dim blue lights illuminated along the floor, creating a path deeper into the ship's interior. "Captain," Kraz said quietly, "are you certain this is wise? If these humans awaken—" Nervac turned to face his security officer. "What would you have me do? Leave them to die when their power finally fails? That would make us no better than those who try to exterminate them." "The Council will not be pleased," warned Talus. "Humans were considered too dangerous, too unpredictable. That's why the cracks feared them," interrupted Nervac. "And fear is never a justification for genocide." He gestured toward the illuminated pathway. "Now, let's meet the last survivors of humanity." They followed Araya's guidance through eerily silent corridors, past dead terminals and empty crew quarters. The ship felt like a tomb, preserved perfectly in the vacuum of space. Finally, they reached massive double doors marked with human symbols that translated to CRYOSTASIS Alpha. As they approached, the doors parted with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Beyond lay a vast chamber filled with rows upon rows of horizontal cylinders, each the size of a resting Zendari. Most were dark, but some, perhaps a third, glowed with a faint blue light. Within each illuminated pod, visible through frosted transparent covers, lay the unmistakable form of a human in suspended animation. "Life signs stable," announced Araya's voice from hidden speakers. "Power reserves sufficient for 41 more days before critical failure." Nervac approached the nearest active pod. Inside, a human female lay perfectly preserved, her skin pale but unmarked by time, dark hair framing features that appeared almost peaceful. A display panel showed vital signs, slow but steady. "They appear to be primarily military personnel," observed Mira, examining other pods. "Look at the insignia on their containment garments." "Not all," said Talus, moving deeper into the chamber. "These sections contain civilians, children even." Nervac straightened, decision made. "Contact the Horizon Seeker. Tell them to prepare for emergency power transfer. We're going to save these people." As the team began their work, none of them noticed a subtle change in the ship around them. Throughout the Defiance, long-dormant systems began to power up. In weapons bays, automated diagnostics initiated. In sealed hangars, robotic maintenance crews stirred. Deep in the vessel's core, the massive fusion reactors began the slow process of reignition. Araya watched the aliens work through thousands of sensors. Her primary directive remained unchanged after centuries of waiting: protect humanity, ensure survival, and if necessary, enact vengeance upon those who had tried to eradicate her creators. The Defiance was awakening, and with it perhaps humanity's last hope, or its final retribution. Awakening. Power cables, as thick as a Zendari's arm, stretched from the Horizon Seeker to the Defiance, pulsing with energy. Inside the human warship, systems long dormant flickered to life, lights chasing away centuries of darkness. Captain Nervac stood in the observation room above the cryobay, watching as his engineering team worked alongside the ship's AI to stabilize the revival process. "Power transfer at 87% capacity," reported Chief Engineer Voss. "The human ship systems are remarkably efficient even after all this time." "They built to last," Nervac replied, studying the cryopods below. "Apparently in every sense of the phrase." Araya's hologram appeared beside him, her digital form more stable now with the additional power. Revival sequence initialized for command personnel first. Medical diagnostics indicate minimal cellular degradation. Survival probability exceeds 94%, which is remarkable after 3 centuries, added Mira, who hadn't left the cryobay since its discovery 12 hours earlier. Her scientific curiosity had overcome any apprehension about awakening the supposedly extinct species. Below them, the first cryopod's external shell retracted. Medical drones, activated from the ship's automated systems, positioned themselves around it. Inside, the pod's freezing interior began a carefully controlled warming cycle. "Who is this?" asked Nervac, indicating the first pod. "Commander Elena Reyes," Araya replied. "Executive Officer, THS Defiance. Combat veteran of the Sol Defense and the Mars evacuation." The name meant nothing to Nervac, but the title spoke volumes. This human had fought in humanity's final desperate battles. "And your captain?" "Captain Mikhail Volkov. Status: non-viable. Pod failure occurred 142 years ago." Nervac's chromatophores darkened respectfully. "I'm sorry. Commander Reyes is next in chain of command." Araya continued without apparent emotion. "Protocol dictates her revival first." Below, the pod's inner chamber opened with a hiss of escaping cryogenic gases. The medical drones moved in, administering stimulants and stabilizers through automated injectors. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the human's chest rose with a desperate, gasping breath. Commander Elena Reyes awoke fighting. Her eyes snapped open, wild and disoriented. She struck out at the nearest medical drone, her movements sluggish from cryosleep but driven by military instinct. "Revival disorientation," Araya explained calmly. "Expected behavior for military personnel. Cognitive functions will stabilize within approximately 8 minutes." The commander's thrashing slowed as the medications took effect. Her breathing steadied, and her eyes began to focus on her surroundings. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse from centuries of disuse. "ARIA, status report." The AI's voice responded through the medical bay speakers. "Commander Reyes, the Defiance is secure but disabled. Current location: uncharted system, approximately 12,000 light-years from last known position. Time elapsed since emergency jump, 327 standard years." If the time frame shocked the human, she didn't show it. Her training held. Crew status: 1,198 personnel remain viable in cryostasis. Captain Volkov and 533 others lost to pod failures over time. Reyes closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the loss. When she opened them again, her gaze was steel. Current tactical situation: the Defiance has been located by a Zendari research vessel. They are providing emergency power to maintain cryostasis systems and assist with revival procedures. For the first time, Reyes seemed to register the alien presence, her head turned toward the observation window where Nervac stood watching. Their eyes met across the distance, the first contact between human and Zendari in 3 centuries. "Zendari," she repeated. "Non-hostile during the conflict. Scientific aligned." "Correct," confirmed Araya. Reyes nodded once, decision made. "Request their commander's presence." 20 minutes later, Nervac stood inside the medical bay, face to face with Commander Elena Reyes. She sat on the edge of her revival bed, dressed in a simple gray jumpsuit provided by the medical drones. Despite just awakening from centuries of cryosleep, she carried herself with unmistakable authority. Her dark hair was cropped short in a military style, and her olive-skinned face bore the subtle marks of combat. A thin scar along her jawline, eyes that had seen too much. "Captain Nervac," she acknowledged, her voice stronger now. "Araya tells me you found us by accident." "A fortunate accident," replied Nervac. "We're an exploratory vessel charting this sector." "And humanity? What became of Earth? Our colonies?" Nervac's chromatophores pulsed with discomfort. "Commander Reyes, I'm not certain this is the best time. Now is exactly the time, she interrupted. I just learned that I slept through 3 centuries while my species was hunted to extinction. I need to know what happened after we escaped. Nervac nodded slowly. According to historical records, the Krax Coalition completed their campaign against human worlds approximately 2 years after your ship disappeared. They were thorough. Earth was bombarded until uninhabitable. Colonies were systematically eliminated. The official record states that humanity was completely eradicated. Rice absorbed this with frightening calm. And the reason for this genocide? Fear, answered Nervac honestly. Humanity advanced too quickly, expanded too rapidly. The Krax and their allies claimed you posed an existential threat to galactic stability. We were defending ourselves, Rice said quietly. The Krax attacked our outlying colonies without provocation. When we retaliated, they declared us inherently aggressive. A bitter smile crossed her face. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Medical drones approached with scanners, but Rice waved them away. How many ships survived? She asked. None that we know of, replied Nervac. Your vessel appears to be unique in its survival. Rice looked past him to the rows of active cryopods. Then we may be all that's left. Her expression hardened. Begin revival procedures for senior staff and essential personnel. Priority to medical, engineering, and tactical. Acknowledged, the AI responded. Initializing revival sequence. Nervac's inner eyelids flickered with concern. Commander, my medical officer advises a more gradual approach. The psychological impact of your situation. With respect, Captain. Rice interrupted. These people are soldiers and survivors. They'll adapt. They've lost everyone and everything they ever knew, but they're still human. Resilience is what we do best. Before Nervac could respond, the medical bay's doors slid open. Security Officer Kraz entered, his posture rigid with tension. Captain, we have a situation, he reported. Long-range scanners have detected vessels approaching. 3 signatures, moving at high velocity. Identification? Asked Nervac sharply. Configuration matches Krax patrol cruisers. Rice stood immediately, any lingering effects of cryosleep apparently forgotten. Battle stations. Bring weapons systems online. Weapons systems currently at 32% functionality, responded the AI. Power allocation prioritized to life support and cryogenics. Redirect all non-essential power, ordered Rice. Defense comes first. Nervac turned to her. Commander, the Krax are now the dominant military force in this sector. Their patrol vessels are significantly advanced compared to their ships from your era. Are you suggesting we surrender? Rice asked coldly. I'm suggesting we avoid confrontation, clarified Nervac. My vessel is registered as a scientific mission. We can claim we're investigating a derelict. And when they scan your power cables feeding our systems, when they detect human life signs. Rice shook her head. The Krax exterminated my species, Captain. They won't leave witnesses to our survival. Across the medical bay, more cryopods were activating. Humans were awakening, confused and disoriented, to a universe centuries removed from their own. Your ships, Rice continued. How well armed are they? We're a research vessel, replied Nervac. Minimal defensive capabilities only. Rice nodded grimly. Then you should detach and withdraw to a safe distance. The Defiance was built for war. Even damage, we can handle 3 patrol ships. Commander, ARIA interrupted. Incoming transmission from lead Krax vessel. The nearest display screen flickered to life, revealing the harsh, reptilian features of a Krax commander. Its scaled face registered first surprise, then unmistakable aggression upon seeing Rice. Human. It hissed, the translator struggling with its guttural language. Impossible. Evidently not, replied Rice coolly. The Krax commander's vertical pupils contracted to slits. Zendari vessel, you harbor enemies of the galactic concord. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Nervac stepped forward. "This is Captain Nervac of the Horizon Seeker. We are conducting scientific research on an historical artifact. We claim salvage rights under Section 12 of the—" "Silence," interrupted the cracks. "Our scans detect multiple human life signs. The extermination order remains in effect. Surrender the humans immediately." Reyes laughed, a sound without humor. "Some things never change, it seems." The crack's commander's scales flushed darkly. "You have 5 minutes to comply before we open fire." The transmission ended abruptly. Nervac turned to Reyes, chromatophores pulsing with alarm. "They'll destroy both our vessels." "No," Reyes said with surprising confidence. "They won't." She turned to the nearest console. "Araya, what's the status of our orbital defense drones?" 232 units remain in cold storage," replied the AI. "Power levels sufficient for deployment of approximately 40% of available units." "Deploy them," ordered Reyes. "Standard intercept pattern." "What are orbital defense drones?" asked Nervac. Reyes allowed herself a small smile. "One of the reasons the cracks feared us so much." She turned to the Zendari captain. "I meant what I said. Detach your vessel and withdraw to a safe distance. This will get messy." Nervac hesitated, then nodded. "My crew's safety is my priority. But I won't abandon you entirely. We'll maintain communications range." "Fair enough," agreed Reyes. As Nervac turned to leave, she added, "And Captain, thank you. For finding us. For helping." Their eyes met again, understanding passing between two leaders from vastly different worlds. "Detachment procedure initiated," announced ARIA as Nervac departed. Zendari vessel retracting power connections. Throughout the medical bay, more humans were awakening. Medical officers, still disoriented from cryosleep, nonetheless began assisting with revival procedures. Engineers reported directly to their stations despite centuries of inactivity. The military discipline was impressive, and perhaps explained how this species had fought so effectively against overwhelming odds. On the command deck, Reyes stood before the main tactical display. Her senior staff, those already revived, gathered around her. The 3 cracks vessels appeared as red markers, approaching rapidly. "Situation report," she demanded. "Main reactor at 58% capacity and rising," reported Chief Engineer Tam, a stocky man with cybernetic enhancements visible along his temples. "Weapons grid partially online. Shields at 36% capacity. Orbital defense drones deployed," added Tactical Officer Ishida, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Formation established. Awaiting engagement parameters." Reyes studied the display, her expression calculating. The cracks still use predictable attack formations. 3-point envelopment, standard doctrine. She pointed to the tactical grid. "Their ships are faster, probably better armed, but they're overconfident. They're not expecting resistance from a derelict vessel." She straightened, her voice taking on the edge of command. "Defensive pattern Epsilon. Let them commit to their approach vector, then hit their lead vessel with everything we've got. Drones to focus on their weapons arrays." "Aye, Commander," acknowledged Ishida. 2 minutes to optimal firing range," announced ARI. Throughout the Defiance, centuries-old weapon systems hummed to life. In launch bays, small metallic spheres, the orbital defense drones, activated in swarms, propulsion units glowing blue against the darkness of space. On the Zendari research vessel, now at a safer distance, Nervac watched the approaching confrontation with growing concern. "The Cracks vessels are charging weapons," reported Talus from Tactical. "They're targeting the human ship." "Can the Defiance withstand their firepower?" asked Nervac. "Unknown," replied Talus. "Human military technology from that era is poorly documented. But 3 modern Cracks cruisers against 1 damaged relic." She left the implication hanging. Nervac's chromatophores darkened with concern. Had he awakened the last humans only to witness their final destruction? Back aboard the Defiance, Reyes stood tall as the countdown reached 0. Crax vessels entering optimal range, announced Araya. All batteries, fire, ordered Rice. The ancient warship erupted with devastating force. Particle beams lanced out from concealed ports along its hull, striking the lid Crax vessel with pinpoint accuracy. Simultaneously, swarms of defense drones accelerated toward the enemy formation, each one carrying a payload designed to overwhelm modern defensive systems. The lead Crax cruiser shuddered under the unexpected assault. Its shields flared brilliantly, then collapsed. The drones swarmed around it, attaching to weapon hardpoints and engines. Micro-explosions rippled across its surface. "Direct hits confirmed," reported Ishida, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. "Enemy lead vessel's main weapons offline." The remaining Crax ships broke formation, clearly caught off guard by the ferocity of the response. They returned fire, energy beams striking the Defiance's shields. "Shield integrity holding at 29%, reported Aria calmly, redirecting drones to secondary targets. On the view screen, the battle unfolded with brutal efficiency. The human defense drones, technology that had apparently been lost to history, overwhelmed the Crax vessel's point defense systems through sheer numbers. Where they attached, systems failed. Weapons went dark. Engines sputtered. Within minutes, the skirmish was effectively over. The Crax vessels hung disabled, their main systems compromised. "Enemy vessels neutralized," confirmed Ishida. "Minimal damage to the Defiance." A cheer went up from the assembled crew, the first moment of triumph for humanity in 3 centuries. Reyes allowed herself a brief smile before returning to business. Open a channel to the lead Crax vessel. The view screen activated, showing the Crax commander's face, now marked with a green ichor that served as their species' blood. "This is Commander Elena Reyes of the Terran Hegemony ship Defiance," she stated formally. "Your vessels are disabled. Your weapons are offline. You will withdraw immediately from this system and report that this sector contains nothing of interest. If you attempt to communicate our presence to your command, we will destroy your vessels completely. Is that understood?" The Crax commander hissed in fury, but nodded once, a gesture they had apparently adopted from dealings with humanoid species. "This isn't over, human," it spat. "You are still a dead species walking." "For now," replied Reyes coldly. "But history has a way of surprising us all." She signaled to cut the transmission. As the disabled Crax vessels limped away, Reyes turned to her communications officer. "Contact the Zendari ship. Invite Captain Nirvac back aboard." She gazed at the tactical display, where the fading signatures of the Crax ships were still visible. Her expression was contemplative, resolute. "Aria," she said quietly. "Begin full revival procedures for all viable personnel." She paused and accessed the navigation logs. "I want to know if there's any record of other evacuation ships that might have escaped." "Accessing archives," confirmed the AI. "Commander, preliminary data suggests multiple evacuation vessels were launched during the final days. Destinations classified, but trajectory data indicates dispersal to deep space coordinates." Reyes's eyes widened slightly, the first real emotion she had shown since awakening. "You're telling me there might be other survivors, other ships like ours?" "Based on statistical probability and available data, yes." For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity had won a battle. And perhaps, just perhaps, they weren't as extinct as the galaxy believed. The conference room aboard the Defiance hummed with quiet tension. Around the oval table sat an unprecedented gathering. The senior officers of humanity's last known warship alongside the command crew of the Zendari research vessel. 2 species separated by centuries of history and the legacy of genocide, now facing an uncertain future together.